I'm not one to stand on ceremony, but such an occasion calls for an introduction.
The throne. Not for long. This is my ascension. Off my chair, Jester. The king sits there.
A coldness that can only be hers. But you can expect a warm welcome.
Welcome to another 5 Reasons to Play video, this time starring an absolute Final Fantasy classic and supposedly the main job of producer Naoki Yoshida, the Black Mage. While being considered one of the hardest jobs you can play, the Black Mage is praised and loved by many players, not only for delivering raw, unshared damage, but also for how it serves the Song of Fire and Ice. Which leads us to the first argument. There's no other job coming any closer to a turn-based combat system than the Black Mage. If you are a hardcore fan of the old main series Final Fantasies, the Black Mage might become one of the top choices for you, as it doesn't follow on combo systems, big cooldown phases that create totally different style of playing your character, nor does use any gauge-like systems. No, the Black Mage focuses on raw magic power and explosions that are either burning your MP with fire magic or recovering it while finding yourself inside of your Umbral Ice stance. And as you're rotating between these stances, a lot of planning needs to be done, because you have to stand still for accomplishing a solid performance. So the strategical aspect comes through intensively, and battle awareness and planning is mandatory to not fall out of your rotation. Which is one of the main reasons many players start as bad Black Mages but come back as the king of DPS, at least when balancing is working out as intended. On top of that, having free choices through being able to make some spells turn into instant spells with the help of your triple cast spell, which can freely be chosen for whatever spell you choose, where of course spells with longer cast time should be favored. However, the pinnacle of planning and battle knowledge comes into play with your Leyline spell, that creates a designated zone around your character, which amplifies your cast speed and recast time of spells. But you cannot move it anywhere else once applied to the ground. Forming the alpha and omega of strategical moves and thinking in advance is a must, which separates the battle plan of Black Mages from their competition. All these aspects lead to another very cool thing, which is how your damage is dealt from the time aspect. Other jobs tend to squeeze in everything into their big burst windows with a cooldown of 120 seconds, and a possible intermediate burst window with 60 seconds as cooldown, which merges with the big one every 2 minutes of course. Black Mage on the other hand, due to how the resources are your indication and blueprint for shifting from burst to hold back phases, the transition between big and small damage is much less dramatic, and Black Mage is holding up consistent damage even outside of these big burst windows. Yes, triple cast, ley lines or mana font are still traditional big burst cooldowns, but your rotation is the strongest of all jobs when you're not having those tools available. So using Black Mage feels way more consistent and leveled even compared to basically all other jobs that are formed around the idea of damage squeeze and then damage seize. That means Black Mages are very interesting for players with the urge to burn their enemies constantly and don't wait for big cooldowns to make that happen, but every time you shift over to Astral Fire, it is time to burn them down, baby. But of course, let us talk about the elephant in the room. Black Mage is the top choice for the highest possible damage. It might not be the case in the recent patch 6.11, but as this is considered to be an intrinsical design of the Black Mage, Square will get the job back to the crown of DPS at some point. I would say in 90% of patches the top Black Mage player was unbeatable, at least when it comes to its personal raw damage output, while not being granted the favor of a dancer for example. And while the Samurai is serving as the melee counterpart of a Black Mage that also only offers raw damage and no offensive party support, Black Mages don't stack well with jobs like dancers, as a Samurai would, but they can push out devastation without the need to get supported by others. It's a caster for purists, and most of the times in patches the strongest of them all. That means, when you want the highest possible damage output, no matter how hard you have to fight for it, or when you just didn't like Hisatsu Kaiten being removed, Black Mage is your choice. And yes, this naturally leads us to the kinda identical argument why I glorified the ninja so much. Black Mage definitely makes easy content become decently challenging, and when taking the personal damage argument into account, this gets even better on the Black Mage, and combined with its battle awareness aspect mentioned before, the immersion of performing in certain duty finder encounters is much more demanding and way more satisfying than with other jobs. However, here on the Black Mage, this can definitely be applied to all difficulty levels. Many viewers have told me that this is what they love about the Black Mage, that you might fall down many times, but as long as you always stand up again, the final victory in which you're achieving a solid Black Mage performance is invaluable. Especially as this is combined with the peak of all DPS jobs. So whenever you achieved victory and a good performance, there's a good chance you have outmatched all other DPS around you, and no one else earned the DPS crown as much as you did. The last reason is taking up the base idea of the Black Mage being a pure minimalist job with a well-known reputation. Yes, this reputation can actually become a two birds with one stone argument, because people tend to be more forgiving to a Black Mage player as they know how difficult it is to stay inside of your rotation while still maintaining a somehow vital health status. On the other hand, they are deeply respecting your performance whenever it works out. I have to say, I personally feel very respectful and awestruck whenever I see Black Mages pushing themselves on my student trainees calculator spreadsheet, and most of the times this is accompanied with a big lead and heavy DPS numbers that let your reverence intensify even more. So even if it may be difficult to achieve these numbers and great performances, you are rewarded with respect if you do it, and gifted with empathy if you don't. Which can be a very relaxed way of how you can tackle content. That means pushing your boundaries might never be more satisfying than on a Black Mage. On the other hand, with great explosions comes great responsibility, so let us talk about some possible downsides of choosing a Black Mage. The first thing that comes to my mind, and whenever I switch back to Black Mage from other jobs, is how difficult it can become to keep up your rotation. Like I said, the idea of constantly having things to track and upholding your astral fire and umbral eyes are major distractions over the whole encounter. While other jobs mostly focus on their big burst windows where your eyes need to be attached to your hotbar. But on the Black Mage, which definitely might be due to my lack of routine, you have your eyes attached to your hotbar constantly. Which means actual encounter mechanics are easy to miss, and this is particularly bad because you want to know what's happening around you to plan in advance and where to place ley lines or when you're able to start the next long hard casts. And when AoEs or other mechanics interrupt your casting sequences, you can easily drop Astral Fire or Umbral Eyes, which leads to a crucial loss of DPS. But with each expansion, the Black Mage receives more and more instant spells or tools to be able to move while executing a rotation, which helps significantly to sustain your spell uptime and stick to the ABC guideline, while not dropping any stances or getting hit too much. I honestly think with solid routine and knowledge of the encounter you're dealing with, the Black Mage is far from the disadvantage it had in previous expansions, but still if you prefer more flexible casters with a much lower skill floor, Summoner but also the Red Mage might be preferable. Okay, but what about proc raiding and whenever boss design demands multiple movement sequences in consecution? I have to admit, here the Black Mage is in an earnest disadvantage to its competition and therefore might get dismissed by some raid groups, especially when fights are movement heavy and raising capabilities would increase the success of the party. Don't get me wrong, this is compensated by good Black Mages, and once people know that you're one of them, there's no reason to not take you with them. Still, to get there could become a bit difficult, and sometimes Red Mages or Summoners are just the better choice and option. However, when the time is nigh and Black Mage DPS is high, for speed raiding, Black Mages are beloved as none other, except a samurai maybe. So hold up your spirit and never let anyone impair your love and passion for black magic. There's nothing coming close to such big explosions and DPS, and if you can handle it, you can handle everything. So my friends, always be casting, and if you need even more motivation why Black Mage is a top choice of a job, check out Pint's amazing 10,000 hours of Black Mage video that you can find in the description.
A mega pint.
Until next time, weave the biggest explosions this game has to offer and keep loving Final Fantasy.